Today in BRStv, you got Ryan.
Randy.
All right, man, we're gonna do alkalinity test kits. We're gonna find out which one of these is the best on a whole variety of different fronts and solve that problem of finding the right alkalinity test kit for you, because most of us just keep wasting money over and over and over again, buying all of them, trying to figure it out. And some of them change over time.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure you guys wanna know the best, man. And so we're gonna look at that from like the easiest to read component. We're gonna look at it from the cheapest component, the most consistency.
The easiest to perform, the most accurate, and I think the biggest one is at the end is cost.
Yeah, man, like which one is the cheapest as well.
Sure.
So we'll hit on all those things, and then we're gonna start right here on the KH Alkalinity Test Kit from Tropic Marin. So the first one we're going to start with is the KHtropic Marin Alkalinity Test Kit. This is the standard one. It's a cheaper version. We don't actually sell this thing yet, but after using it, I think we're gonna. So I don't know. What did you like about it?
It's super easy to perform. One drop equals 1 DKH, and you can follow the scale from there.
Yeah. So like what we did is you just get your sample water, 5 milliliters, and you put drops in. 8 drops means 8 DKH.
Can't get much simpler than that.
And it was a very, very distinct color change that happens almost immediately when you drop it in.
Yeah, and speaking of color change, as far as how do you know which color means the change? Well, it's printed on the box. So
yeah.
I do have to keep the box, in which case it goes from like a dark blue or a blue to like a pink color, and it's pretty easy to see.
I gotta tell you, I don't like the fact that it's on the box, because I may lose this box. I'd rather just keep these things around, and it's paper, so it is probably not going to stand at the test of time of being next to the tank. So on that front, thumbs down. You know, I wish that all of these things are used next to saltwater, so they should have some kind of laminated card with it. But I gotta tell you, the difference between that blue and the red, and it happens with 1 drop, poof, it totally changes. Yeah. It was super, super easy to see.
Yeah, and with this one, you get 100 tests in a box, so on average, about 100 tests, and that's like 15 bucks. So it's like 15 cents a test.
Yeah, so I will say that you only get a resolution of 1 DKH, so it's either 7 or 8. I could kind of check where it was in the middle, actually, because if you need 1, it's kind of there. It's 1 more drop and it changes. It's probably like right in the middle there.
True.
They do say you have a high resolution mode by doubling from 5 milliliters to 10 and doubling or getting down to a half a DKH per drop. But I just found like trying to shake up that much water with the drops just didn't work out very well.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
So what do you rate this one then?
You know what? At 15 cents a test, and it was so easy, man, I would really want to give it 2 thumbs up, actually, but because it doesn't have that super high degree of accuracy, I'm gonna give it 1, man.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat, just because I don't know what's between 8 and 9, if it really matters to me, and probably for critical things like, you know, calcium reactors or dialing in 2-part dosing. I kind of want that accuracy and precision, in which case I'm gonna go with a 1 thumb.
Yeah, the only thing, man, I might actually give it 2 thumbs on is for testing the effluent of your calcium reactor, right?
Yeah, which is super high.
Yeah, like it's gonna be like 35 or 20 or whatnot. You know, all the rest of them are gonna have some kind of dilution factor or whatever. This one, I can just keep dropping it in until I get to where I need to go, and at 35 drops, and I've got my calcium reactor effluent strength. So, yeah, awesome, man. All right, the second one we have up here is the KH Pro from Tropic Marin. We actually do have this one on stock. So this guy is your standard 2-part test, meaning you add some drops to the reagent and then you start titrating, you know, drop by drop from the syringe. So I don't know, what was the first thing you liked, didn't like?
For this one, I think for didn't like, again, we're back at the color change is on the box. The instructions are paper and black and white, so you have to keep the box around. And that big a box is probably going to get wet when I'm using it, for sure.
So I don't really like, again, I don't like the instructions. They're made out of paper. And, you know, there is a visual reference inside of them, but it's not as clear as some of the other visual references. A lot of these test kits, you don't even have to read all the steps. You can literally just see the visual cues as what to do. I think most people appreciate that. So I wish that it had, you know, gone that far.
One thing I do like about this one is it's easy to read the end part. It's easy to read on the end. So when I'm done with my syringe, all I do is look at it. If it says I use, you know, 7.6, I go and look, and that means I don't even have to look at a chart. 7.6 end of syringe means it was 7.6 DKH. That's
Isn't
as simple as that.
That is actually super, super nice to not have to have a chart to reference to. If I go up here and I've used exactly 8 milliliter or 8.8 milliliters, that is 8 DKH.
That's
like
super easy.
Yeah, man, that's super, super easy. Not having to have a chart around is something that I think a lot of people would like.
So then with that in mind, like if I use this test kit often, and I got really used to the KH Pro, you know, I could probably do without the box and the color change reference, because I've gotten to a point where I'm comfortable. I know that that's the color change color.
It is distinct.
And then I don't even need a chart to read the end point. So basically I'm down to the plastic parts.
Yeah, it's changing from blue to red, and it like, you know, changes all in one.
Yeah.
And so just for a little tip for all of you guys who are doing this thing, one of the things I like to do is make sure that I'm going through it, and when I think maybe I got it, I'll note like where it is in the syringe, and then I'll give it another drop and see if it continues to change. So I have a mental note of where I think we ended the point, but I want to make sure I get all the way to the color change. And so just, you can keep going, but take a note of where you think it might have happened. You can keep going. But this one was super, super, super easy to read. It is 41 cents a test, though.
41 cents a test, which makes it our second highest out of the lineup today. So,
I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how much this, how relevant this really is. It's a test kit, so 41 cents a test is definitely amongst the most expensive options here. But you know what?
It's got its plus and minuses too, though.
I mean, I'm gonna do it like, I mean, it depends on how often you do it. If you do alkalinity every day, I don't know. I don't think I'd use this one.
Right.
If I did it every month, what does it matter? It's a couple bucks a month. I save $1 a month. I guess you can always put somewhere.
Yeah,
put
for sure.
Put $1 in a good place.
So what would you rate this one? How many thumbs?
I'm gonna give it, 1 thumb, just because the color change was super nice. The ability to just read this thing and read a 7.7, it means that it's or read it direct right off the syringe.
Yeah.
Means that I don't have to have that card around. I think it was awesome. I'll give it 1.
Okay, I was really close on a 2 thumb on this one, because I don't need a chart to read the syringe, and because I could get comfortable with it enough where I don't need the box to keep the color change reference point around. But I test alkalinity quite often. I'm a daily alkalinity type of tester, in which case cost prohibitive for me when I can find something that's a little more cost effective that does about the same. So I'll give it a 1 thumb.
All right, well, 1 thumb for both. So next up is the Hanna DKH checker. Man, I'm gonna let you roll with it because you use it the most.
This is one of the go-tos, I think, around the office by far, especially for like Aaron and me and Josh, who are constantly checking multiple tanks of alkalinity every day. So I mean, we're probably doing upwards of 5 or 6 tests a day, in which case this one is probably my fastest and easiest to perform of all, and I don't have to, it's not judgmental. Like, I can hand you this Hanna alkalinity checker or anybody else's Hanna alkalinity checker and probably get really consistent results.
Almost anybody is going to perform this thing almost the same, and it is going to be pretty darn consistent. I will tell you right now, if you're colorblind or getting there, or if you just can't figure out where to get that, where that color change happens exactly, or don't like it, digital readout, man, is king. Right? Yeah. Like, there's no, mistaking what 7.8 is.
Yeah.
It's 7.8.
Exactly.
So most people are going to really, really dig it. It takes like 1 minute to do. The process is fill it up to 10 milliliters of water in there. Push the button, put it in the thing, push the button, put 1 milliliter reagent in there, shake it 4 times, put it back in, push the button. Literally less than 60 seconds. I bet you could jam it into 30 if you really wanted to. It's super, super, super simple. So this is a good point where we actually can talk about consistency and accuracy. Because on all of these ones, Randy actually recently did some testing on it. So
yeah, if you haven't seen the video, check it out. We did the calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium, where we took 5 of us 4 seasoned reefers and 1 sort of beginner, not so seasoned reefer, and we tested the BRS 160 with calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium for a variety of different test kits. And then based on that, we got we averaged kind of all of them together and came out with an overall average that day of testing of 7.7 DKH. And the Hanna checker average between all of us who tested, or most of us who tested, came out to be 8.15 DKH, so a little bit above.
pretty close. And I'll just say, you know, it's really difficult to know exactly what the sample is going to be. So one of the ways to do that is definitely take, you know, 30 different tests, multiple different types of tests, and then average them all together.
Yeah.
And you're probably pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Right? And so this guy was off by, you know, about 0.3 DKH. You know, maybe that matters to you, maybe it doesn't. It's not going to make any difference to the tank for sure, specifically because it's really consistent as well. Yeah. So even though all 5 of us took it, and one of them almost never tests anything, he said just barely a reefer here. It was a high of 8.3 and a low of 8.0.
So 0.3 DKH variance between the highest and the lowest, and I'd have to say in between was even closer than that. Those are the extremes, and that's not very extreme.
That's one of the tightest consistencies that we found. And that's one of the cool things about this one, actually, is because all the rest of them, like, I don't really know, everybody kind of decides where that end point is individually. And the difference between, you know, kind of pink and really pink, it could be as much as a whole DKH,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, so, like, its accuracy is only as good as you do it yourself, right?
Yeah.
In this case, it kind of like takes out all of that interpretation of the results, and the process is so simple, man. What's the cost?
And then on this one, I think even cost-wise, this does it for me too. In that, okay, there's the initial upfront cost to get the checker, but you only need to make that one-time purchase, and that's about 50 bucks. But you get 25 tests with it, but then after that you get reagents, which is the same 25 test little bottle. That thing costs $9 to replace, and which makes it, after you made the initial purchase, 36 cents a test.
36 cents is right in the middle right there.
That's pretty good.
All right, so 2 thumbs, 1 thumb.
This one gets 2 thumbs from me. I use it so much, and as much as I use it, I mean, the cost isn't as prohibitive as if I was using the more expensive test kit daily, and the amount of times I use it, and just because of the consistency and how quick it is, it absolutely gets 2 thumbs in my book.
I'm going to give a dual answer to this one.
Okay.
If you don't test alkalinity very often, I'm going to give 1 thumb just because of the cost.
Okay.
You know, it's 50 bucks, man. So if you test alkalinity once a month, man, you should probably test more. But if you don't, if you only do it once a month, it's probably expensive. If you're an SPS junkie and you test it weekly or even daily, double, triple thumbs, man. Thumbs all the way. This is probably the best, easiest way. Because it's the easiest, kind of makes it the best in my book. So I can tell you, it's the only thing anybody here uses. This place is littered with these things. They're everywhere. Everybody's got one in the station. All right, so let's move on to the next one.
Cool.
Next up is the Lamont Total Alkalinity Test Kit, and I'll let you just dive right into it, man. What was your first thoughts?
My first thoughts on this one is it's got a really cool case, and it feels like a lab in a box. It feels like it's a test kit company, which absolutely it is, right? It
is. It's a test kit company. These guys do testing for a living for all kinds of different lab applications, and because of that, that is the quality that you're going to get from it. And it's a totally different kind of test kit for sure. You'll see it in the reagents. You'll see it in all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I mean, I get glass bottles and things like that. I think Ryan's favorite component is the titration liquid bottle. In which case, it feels like you're definitely. Some of these test kits, I dip my syringe in the bottom of a dark barrel, and I don't know how much I'm drawing. This one is like you're in a hospital or a lab or type environment where you're drawing straight from the bottle upside down. My favorite part about this kit is I don't have to do drops. I don't have to count drops of my color changing reagent like A or part 1. This one, I have a little tiny tablet that I plop right into the solution and it changes color.
Yeah, so this is a 2-step test kit like most of the more precise ones out here, where you add some reagent first and then you titrate. And in this case though, instead of trying to figure out that like all those drops, and the drops sometimes like you get an extra one or a half of one or whatever, this is just a little tablet you drop in there and it dissolves in like a half a second.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Color change card on this one is really close to accurate. One of the most close to accurate, and it goes from really easy colors to identify, like the turquoise green at the start, to a purple, where you can kind of the same tip that Ryan gave on some of these other ones is when you get to the point where you think it's the color change, note it and then go back and do a couple more, because there's an end point on this one too. It's one of the only ones with an end point where it'll tell you when you've gone too far.
Yeah. So I mean, there's only two I think here that tell you like when you've gone too far, and so that red absolutely pops right out.
Yeah.
So that is one of the good things. One of the things I don't like is the fact that it reads out in here. You have to take the number off of it, and then you have to multiply it. It gives it in calcium carbonate equivalents as part per million, and so to change it into a DKH, you have to multiply that by 0.056 or something like that. And that is a step that I would prefer to not do with my Alkalinity Test Kit. In fact, I think this is what this guy did a while back before they had the DKH checker.
It had the parts per million checker. You had to do the calculation. On that, on another note on this one is each individual line on here represents 4 parts per million. If you're reading parts per million, so you kind of got to do some math up front when you pass like the 140 or the 160, and then how many lines after, and do the calculation, then multiply it by 0.056. But in the end, you know, it's pretty accurate as far as accuracy came.
One last thing before we hit on that is that this one also has the right kind of friction in the syringe, right? So that may seem like a little subtle thing, but it allows you to get out even droplets out of it, where some of them are too, you know, too
slick, where you squeeze it and then
4 drops comes out all the time. So yeah, I don't know. All the components of this thing, you know, are like absolutely the best of the bunch in here. Does have that price point attached to it. But let's go to accuracy first.
Yeah, so accuracy, again, when we did the average of all of the test kits that we did for alkalinity, we came across the 7.77 DKH average, which is about as accurate as we can get without sending it into a lab and doing these other ones, but something that you can replicate at home. In which case, the average between 4 hobbyists that have tested before, this one came out at 7.56 DKH, so within 0.3 DKH.
That's like 2.5. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that is about as close as you're gonna get with 4 different reader firsts trying to figure out the end point. So I thought the accuracy was spot on with against, you know, like 25 different tests again. And same thing with the consistency is the high of 7.84, which is right on there, and a low of 7.39. Again, with different people reading it, it's within a half a DKH and totally acceptable to me. So I don't know. I thought that was awesome. How much does it cost?
So talking about cost now, you have the initial cost of the kit itself, which is like kind of like the Hanna or some of these other ones where it's a one-time cost, $37.99, but it includes 50 tests, 50 tablets. And then there's a reagent refill where you get new reagent B and new tablets, another 50, which works out to be 42 cents per test.
So 42 cents per test makes this the most expensive option here for sure. But you're getting a lab type test kit from a lab company that does this for a living, so it's not farmed out by a fish company to somebody else or whatnot. So you know, you kind of get what you pay for, and but it is definitely the most expensive. So which one are you gonna give it? Thumbs up, no thumbs, 1 thumb, 2 thumb?
I'm more towards, I'm just on 1 thumb on this one. And that's mainly because my positives on this one for me personally is the tablets. I love to just be able to drop a tablet in, and I already know how many tests I have left. With some other ones, you know, maybe I don't know how exactly if I'm gonna get 25 or 30 or 75 tests from. I know I can get 50 tests from this because I got 50 tablets, bottom line. And then the color change was super easy for me to read on this one. So I'll give it a thumbs up. Cost-wise, as much as I test, probably no thumbs.
All right, so this one I'd almost give it 2 thumbs just because it is probably the highest quality components of everything here, which kind of gives you the tablets and the draw effect and all this stuff. Gives you a feeling what you're doing is accurate. The data kind of shows that it's accurate and consistent as well. I don't want to multiply by 0.56 though in the end, so I can't give it 2. I have to give it just 1 thumbs up in the end, just based on the fact that I don't want to get a calculator out to get my results. Sure. They could put it in the instructions and add that, but again, the Lamont isn't designed to be sold to aquarium users. Which
we're about the only ones that read DKH anyway, right?
I think we're one of the only companies that actually sells these things as well, like in the aquarium world. So yeah, I mean, so you know, I don't think they'll ever put it in the instructions because it's not designed or sold to our market. You're just bringing in the highest quality stuff.
Cool.
All right, next one. All right, next up is the Salifer. This one is near and dear to my heart, what I basically grew up on. So, first impressions.
First impressions for me, I've used this one before many times. This is my first foray into testing separate alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium. So of course I went and looked at that price tag on the websites, probably when I was shopping at bulk reef supply before I got here, and saw that this one was like super cheap and it did exactly what I wanted to, so I bought it.
All right. So what do you think?
This one's pretty easy for me. It's, add a few milliliters of sample water, drop in like 3 drops of reagent A, and then do titration. So it's a 2-step, it's also a 2-step, just like a few other ones on here. But the instructions are super clear. Like, I don't need to read the paper line by line, step 1, step 2. I just follow pictures, and pictures are easy.
Yeah, so the pictures on here actually depict, how you do it, and it's accurate and it allows you to skip reading, especially because often you're in a dark area, behind your tank, under your tank, wherever. So that's nice. But, for me, this is definitely a cheaper test kit, so, the vials and everything here obviously are also kind of cheaper than a lot of the other options. But you know what, like, maybe that doesn't even matter, man, because like I don't need a glass vial to be accurate and make what I need to do.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I like the most about this guy, man, is how refreshing it is that the color change matches the image on here the best.
True.
Like, of all of the test kits that we did, this is the most accurate depiction of what the beginning looks like and the end point looks like. And it is super, super refreshing to like, yep, I got it right.
There it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think my favorite part of it is the way that you read the syringe. Like, some of these syringes read backwards, where you read how much is left rather than how much you used. This one is how much you used or how much is left rather than you used. So basically, hey, if I end at 4.3, I go to the chart and I just look at 4.3 and it tells me my DKH, where it's backwards in some other cases where I end at 4.3, I have to see how much, I have to calculate how much I used in my head and then look at the chart and make that determination. So,
which is insane. I don't know why anybody would have done it the other direction, where you have to calculate how much you use it backward. Yeah, it's not a super hard equation, but you're creating an instruction sheet. Might as well, like, where you ended the plunger should be the number I read. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's little things like that. It means that somebody's actually doing this thing when they're creating the instructions. True. Yeah. So yeah, bravo, man. So looking at accuracy, man, this was again measuring against that 7.77 of those like 30 or so tests that we did. It was the Salifer was at 7.94.
One of the closest.
Yeah, man, that is right on there. So bravo for being the closest. However, consistency. Consistency,
which is a little surprising too. But consistency, we were sort of a little farther apart on what we got. So the highest one was 8.6 DKH that one of us reefers got, and the lowest one was 7.15. So over a full DKH point, almost a point and a half disparity there.
I was shocked, to be honest, because it's so easy to find the endpoint there. My guess is some people are reading it early and some people are reading it late.
Very well could.
And they're not reading it as good as I did it. I got the right one. It looks like that. No, I'm kidding. But like, I think that it was really, really easy to do. So I'm surprised, man, that it was that big of a variance. More than a full DKH from the highest to the lowest.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So how much is it?
Cost-wise, this is one of, if not the lowest, but one of the lowest per test. So you get about 100 tests in this thing, depending on how much reagent you use, which actually at $16.46, so about $17, $16.50, ends up being about 16 cents per test. And given its accuracy range, and if I'm the only one performing it, rather than like 4 or 5 different reefers on the same body of water, I can probably trust my consistency and how I do it every single time a little more. Probably. In which case, this at the amount of times that I test for alkalinity, this is one of the top of my line right here. 16 cents is
super cheap. It's also everybody's had success with this guy.
Yeah.
So, how many thumbs?
I really was thinking about giving this one a solo thumb, but I mean, I listened to your points too with the color change, and I listened to myself just now with the accuracy, and if I'm the only one doing it, the consistency there and cost, I'm gonna give this one 2 thumbs.
I mean, can you do 1.5?
I thought about 1 3/4 thumbs,
I'm doing that 1.5. I just thought that the consistency thing was a little strange. I agree with you that if I'm the only one doing it, it's going to be consistent. But you know, I'm so close, especially because it's so cheap at
right.
$16.
Yeah.
I'm really satisfied by the picture matching what it is. So,
you know, I might meet you back down at 1.5 thumbs, only because, and you just picked this up, that if this test card was probably laminated and I'm using it in a water type environment where and the colors can bleed on this paper because it's not laminated, then I might lose. I might drop it down.
Should be a laminated card in here for the instructions. I agree.
I agree.
All right, next one. All right, next up is the Red Sea test kit, and second to last here. Thoughts?
This is my second go-to. Back when I was coming up and trying my own alkalinity test kits. Now I've used a variety of them, but I started with the Salifer, went to the Red Sea, and then ended up with a Hanna checker. So I'm pretty intimate with this one. As far as, you know, the color change, it's a bit different now than it used to be. I find that the old color change system was better. So I do miss that about it, but personally, I'm a big fan of this one-handed testing. I don't know what it is, but I like to sit there and shake and watch in one hand. But
so I'll tell you, I really wanted to like that as well, and it's because I've used the lab grade ones where you can click one dropout, click one dropout, and it has like tactile feedback for each one of those clicks. With this guy, the syringe for me just doesn't have enough friction, and so I end up getting like 4 drops at once all the time. I get like little squirts and stuff in there, and it's really hard for me to do that way. So I will tell you that with most Red Sea test kits, I actually go back to the original method and do it like this because it's just easier for me. Yeah. But you know, that's different for each person. But for me, this could be cool, and for some people it really is because you get one-handed use out of it, and for some other people not so much.
Well, I mean, with that in mind too, if you're in your camp that doesn't like the one-handed titrator, I mean, you could essentially just get a refill kit if you had a bottle and a couple of vials and all that, and just start there without.
It'd be a lot cheaper.
It'd be a cheaper thing. And at 24 cents a test for this one, it's not the most expensive. It's not the cheapest, but it's right in the middle. But the card on this one is laminated, which is pretty nice. So it's in that water environment. It's probably the best. Short of the Lamont being laminated, this is probably the one that'll hold up the best in saltwater over use and use.
It's got your readings on the back of it, the instructions, totally visual. You don't actually have to read anything to perform it. Yeah. You'll notice though that the color change is from blue to green to yellow. So I'm looking for it to go from, like, when I start adding it in, it turns blue, and then eventually it'll turn green. Blue and green are pretty close to each other. And what I'll say is everybody here was able to get pretty consistent readings be able to read it in the end, but you have to pay attention. So you really got to look at it close and say, oh, there it goes from blue to green. Yeah,
and one thing that really helped me on this one, and I think a few of us did, is holding it up to a white piece of paper and having that background, because it's when you're really shaking in the reagent as you're dropping it in there, it's when that water kind of comes together as you're shaking it that I can more easily see the color.
Yeah, and so also this is one of those weird ones where if you go ahead and use or get it down and it says 0.3 here.
You've actually used 8.
Yeah, you've used 8. No, you've used 7 at 0.3.
Oh, it's at 0.3. Yes. You're right. Correct.
So
but then you have to go to the chart.
Yeah, I go to the chart. I can't just read 0.3. I actually have to do the math and figure out. You know, 5, you just messed 6, it up, by 7. The way. Yeah, so it's just a good point to think about, like, how you can screw that up. I got to figure that back out, and it gets, you know, a little bit harder as you add the tenths in and stuff. So I mean, I don't know why, but I would much prefer that this just, you know, correspond with where you ended rather than trying to figure out how much you actually used. Obviously, it's not super complex to do that, but like, why make it harder than you need to? Yeah, I don't know.
And one good thing on this one is it is a single solution. And so it's a one-step test. All I have to do is put 10 mils of sample water in my vial, draw 1 mil of this color-changing it's probably pH indicating, but color-changing titration liquid, and put it straight to the water, and it will change color at my desired alkalinity.
No drops, no tablets. and probably working on the same methodology as like the cheapest of the Tropic Marin ones, like the standard guy down here. It's the same thing. You're dropping, you know, there's no reagent in there. You're just dropping drops in until you get the DKH. Because this uses a syringe or whatnot, you're probably getting a little finer window into it, but probably real same chemistry for the testing solution.
Well, speaking of finer window, talk about accuracy on this one. We tested, going back to what we tested with that 7.77 DKH average of all the test kits and the different amount of people that did them. This one came in at 7.6 for the accuracy, which is a 0.1 DKH, well, 0.17 DKH, which is really close.
That's the closest so far.
Yeah, it's
right?
really close.
Yeah. However, consistency, the lowest reading we got was 7, and the highest we got is 8, which is a full DKH difference. And for some people that may matter, for other people it may not. But that is one of the bigger ranges that we saw. And it may be related to just, the way that the chemistry works without using, just using a one-step process. May also be related to the fact that it's hard. Each one of us saw a different change from, blue to green and where that may have happened. But it does have an over end point. So it is yellow. It will change yellow when you've gone too far. But I will note that yellow is also pretty close to green.
It's
right?
true.
So it's kind of hard to see, So
it's got cost going for it on this one. It's not the most expensive. It's not the cheapest. It's kind of right there in the middle also. But so you buy the kit on its. If you buy the kit on its own, just the Red Sea Alkalinity Pro. On this one, you get 75 tests, and that one's $34.99. But the reagent refill is really where it's at, where you get the same 75 tests, but for $17.99, so like 18 bucks, which ends up making it 24 cents per test.
Yeah, 24 cents right down there at the bottom. Don't forget that it comes in a plastic box, so water isn't going to get in there. You're working around water all the time, so that may not seem like an important thing, but it actually is. It's really nice that some of these options are water resistant when they're designed to be used around water.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. So thumbs. What do you give it?
Thumbs on this one. The color change is harder to read now with the blue to green to yellow versus the blue to pink that it was before. For me, I do like the titrator. The actual syringe is hard to read for me also, as far as like doing the backwards math. I've done it so many times now that I can just do it like this, but I mean there is a learning curve there and an amount of times that you have to do it before you can become pretty persistent and consistent with that. Yeah, this one probably gonna get a 1 thumb on my hand.
I think I will probably give it about a 1 thumb as well. I like the plastic. I like the fact that you can get the laminated card so it stays. For some people, the titrator will be really nice. I just can't give it 2 thumbs if the end result's hard to read. So, and especially if it's end result and it's not like the cheapest or anything. So I'm not really sure where the value mix comes in there. So, one-ish
thumbs. One-ish thumbs.
All right. So, the last one coming up. All right, so the last one before we get to like which one is the best is going to be the Aqua Forest Pro Test Kit. Thoughts?
This one has a really nice, cool looking package on it. I think my favorite part about this one specifically is that they have a reference solution inside of it. It's something that I haven't seen in any of these other test kits. So if you want to test the accuracy of your test kit or test the accuracy of your consistency, so try out that reference solution. Make sure you're doing it right. Yeah. So it should match what the reference solution was. Yeah,
perfect. It's a 2-step test, so like most of these things, except for a couple, you put in a couple of drops. I'm going to tell you right now, though, this little dropper guy is real peculiar. It'll squirt out. So I like to take it to the side and just kind of get a feel for it, and so I'm not dropping in too many drops.
Yeah.
Again, it has a visual reference card here, so you can see, like exactly how to do it. My problem with it is that it shows you, kind of blue, green, purple, pink, and it's really not super clear as to where the end point is.
Right.
I will tell you that it changes to a pink color, and it does get pinker as you add more drops. But based on what we believe the DKH of the water to be from all the other test kits, I think it's the first shade of pink that gets you there. But hey, you should test it against that reference solution there, and so you can figure out exactly where that endpoint is for you. So that is absolutely nice.
Well, and I'm glad that they also include the reference point, because the shade of pink that we're talking about here isn't really close to what's on the card here. It's almost like specifically in that point, it's probably one of the worst ones.
It is the worst.
That it doesn't match the colors on the card.
It is. The color does not match visually what you see in person. You will figure it out because you're not a dummy, but it does not match the same way that this guy matches or this guy matches.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is disappointing, that fact, but I don't know. Outside of that, man, we will look at the accuracy, and based on all those tests and trying to match at 7.77, it came in at 7.56, which is pretty darn close.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And consistency, though,
it's got a high, it's almost a DKH, so it's not the furthest apart in consistency from some of the other ones, but 8.0 for the high and 7.15 for the low end of all of the tests that we did, so right in between some of these other ones.
A little better.
But where it does, kind of win here is cost-wise. So if you're super into like what's the cheapest one out there and what's the cheapest one I can get away with or that I can use, I mean, if you're using a ton, this one comes in at 15 cents per test, which is, it says 75 to 100 tests, so I averaged it out to be about 87 and a half tests, and then did the math. The box is $12.99, so like 13 bucks, which makes it 15 cents a test.
That's super cheap, man.
Yeah.
$12.99. Deal. I got my alkalinity done. And it's a two-step process versus the one here. And I don't know, man. I think that if I had to rate this one myself, I'm gonna give it again, like probably just because it's cheap. And I mean, everybody loves this purple packaging. It's so silly to say, but I would say I give it a thumb, one thumb, just because the color change was harder for me to read. The consistency almost certainly is related to that, and like where the endpoint was, and the fact it doesn't match the color on the sheet.
Yeah.
But the fact that it is the cheapest, I mean, it's like, a penny cheaper than some of them, but it is the cheapest out there, both in terms of per test as well as actually the cost of the test kit itself.
Right.
So you got to give it a thumb for that.
Yeah, I think for me on this one, I'm at a thumb on this one for myself too. I do like I have to give it a thumb specifically for the reference solution that is included in here, because it's just not something when I first opened it, I was like, oh wow, there's a reference solution. I've never seen that before. So that really surprised me, and that really helps me make sure that I'm testing, so my testing procedure is accurate and consistent. I do have to knock it down by my other thumb because of as soon as I flipped that bottle over and I was about to go in and wanted to squirt out, so like Ryan said, you have to kind of hold it off to here, get a feel for how it drips. But outside of that, I think it was relatively easy to read the syringe at the end, to get the reading at the end, much like this, kind of like the Salifer one is. But color change wise and color wise, it's difficult to read.
All right, one thumb for both of us. All right, so the big question, man, which ones are the best? I'm sure you already decided for yourself, but we're going to share our last final opinion, which best, try to keep it brief. So, which ones? My best, my favorite, by far, Hanna Alkalinity Checker. I use it so many times, and the amount of frequency I test, the consistency that it has, it's got my number pegged all over it, and I just really don't like watching for color changes. I would just rather have a digital readout. My next go-to is probably going to be the Salifer. These are the ones that I'd use. Salifer, it's going to be my go-to for the next one. And the syringe is super easy to read, and it's like it takes a couple seconds to perform, and it is cheap, so why not? Next one, my last final choice is the Lamont here. I'm really like the color card on this one, and I love the tablet portion on it. A bit of math involved, which isn't a big deal for me to do, whip out my calculator and do 0.056 and all this other stuff. Feels like a little more sciencey, a little more geeky, and because it has the geek factor in it, this one gets my third vote. All right, I'm gonna take it just like a little bit of a different approach, and every tool use the right tool for the right job, right? if I'm going to test alkalinity like all the time and accuracy counts, I would say consistency counts actually, it's going to be this guy, no question, man. If I'm going to test, I'll invest the $50. There's no question that I would do that. It's so fast and so easy, and everybody that does it, including myself, will never wonder where the color changed. It just reads it out, and it's almost the same for everyone. In fact, I think it rated maybe the best in consistency as we looked at today. So definitely that one. However, if I don't do testing that often, like I'm going to do it once a month, I'm probably not going to invest $50 into my testing solution. And it probably also doesn't mean that I need perfect results either.
Right.
And so I'm going to have two different options here for different purposes. One is going to be the Salifer. Only, I just gotta say, it's so refreshing, again, to have the color match the color that's on the sheet. It's super distinct and easy to read, and it's super cheap. So if I'm gonna go not do it very often, I'm probably gonna go there. And then last one, we don't actually sell this yet, but I'm gonna go tell them to do it, is this little guy right here. Because for a lot of people, one DKH, not accuracy, but be able to read it out at 1 DKH is good enough for a lot of people. And if you're going to use it like on a calcium reactor to check the effluent again, just being able to, just use the drops and there's no dilution involved or anything is really awesome. And you know what? I mean, as easy as this thing is, if I can walk up, put 5 milliliters of water in here and put 8 drops in and know my DKH, that is probably the fastest thing you could probably do here. And as long as I'm not gonna like use that data to like go change things on my tank, if I'm just kind of trying to make sure that I'm close and that nothing major's changed in the tank in the last week, this is actually really simple. So that would be my other one. I want to like the Lamont one a lot, but at $37, man, I'd probably actually just buy this guy. And I don't want to do the 0 point. I don't want a calculator around to have to do it. It's just another way you could mess something up.
True.
So, all right, man. So, hey, you know what? There's a couple of videos out there you should go watch. One of them, we actually did the how much does a test kit actually cost. And so today we were sharing the numbers kind of based off of what's on the box, but we actually measured out like all of the reagent and figured out exactly what these things cost. So I'd go seek out that video. Also, and yours that you're doing recently.
Yeah, the video where we actually break down the calcium, the magnesium, and the alkalinity for a lot of these test kit brands. So you can check that one out, and where we just rate them on accuracy and consistency, and see you kind of interpret the results there.
Yeah. So other thing here is we're considering doing this again for both a magnesium test kit, a calcium test kit, phosphate test kit, and nitrate test kit. If you're interested, give us a thumbs up, man, because it'll give us a little vote that we are doing on the right path, man. And we'll probably wrap this all up into a little playlist that you'll probably see somewhere in this video or find somewhere else anyway. But all right, man, we'll wrap this up, and we'll see you next week.